of frequent power outage in Wajir town, particularly Wajir County, especially Wajir town, for the last 10 years, that has paralyzed essential services at Wajir County Referral Hospital and other facilities. Outline measures the government has put in place, if any, to control of fat, noise, and air pollution emitted by the faulty generators that is negatively affecting the residents in the area, especially in their neighborhood. State the number of engineers deployed in Wajir County for the maintenance of the power generating machines, and inform the Senate where there is any plan by the government to switch to renewable sources of energy, such as solar, and supply to boost the country's electricity, the country's electricity grid, and as a way of reducing the carbon footprint, providing timeline and the cost of the same. Honorable Speaker, Wajir County has been experiencing many years of electrical power problems, and electricity is actually a very essential power supply. Is a very important service to all the economy, and even the referral hospital actually has been suffering and having a lot of problems, especially even when people are given women are delivering, when there is operations, surgery is being done, the lights just goes off, and the thing has caused us a lot of problems. There's a lot of outages, burning all the electronics, and this town has been facing acute shortage of electricity. I therefore request the committee to ask why this is happening for the Ministry of Energy. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Chiranke.
Mr. Speaker, I want to join Senator Mohammed Abbas, and it is unfortunate, although his statement he did not indicate, but I suspect that Wajir County is not connected to national grid. It is very unfortunate that part of the country cannot access electricity. Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, electricity or energy is very key and critical in terms of both infrastructure, health services, and even the economy, Mr. Speaker. Because if the people who do business in Wajir County, and you know that place is hot, they might need to use electricity, especially in fridges, in keeping their food and other things, Mr. Speaker, and even using in hospital. You know there are drugs that must be kept in fridges, Mr. Speaker. So it is very unfortunate if Wajir County is experiencing electricity problems, there is no reliability in terms of electricity. I hope the Committee of Energy should look into this issue, Mr. Speaker. Even as the cost of electricity is very high, the Energy Committee, I remember the chairperson, Senator Wamatinga, brought a statement on the status of the affordability of electricity is still very high, because the biggest elephant in the room is IPPs, that is independent power producers, who still sell their power to the Kenya Power and Lighting Company in exchange of dollar, Mr. Speaker, and that one continued to be expensive. The unreliability of power is very unfortunate in this country, and I hope the new CS, Davis Chirchir, need to up the game. Sometimes you wake up, even here in Nairobi and many other places, Mr. Speaker, the reliability of electricity is still very unfortunate, and I hope the people of Wajir County, Mr. Speaker, should feel that they are part of the great country of Kenya by accessing sightings of electricity, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, even as we discuss about Wajir County, we need to step up on last mile connectivity, Mr. Speaker, so that each and every village in this republic, from Kilifi to Nandi, to Turkana, to Isiolo, Mr. Speaker, must have access to electricity. Mr. Speaker, I remember during the last session, we want, especially in Wajir and northern part where there is a lot of sunlight, there is a lot of sunlight, Mr. Speaker, we also need to appeal to government and Ministry of Energy with the new minister to zero rate importation of solar products that are being imported to the country, so that we have alternative. Mr. Speaker, we cannot talk about green energy and climate change if we cannot work towards the talk of green energy. And one of the ways of achieving green energy, Mr. Speaker, is zero rating importation of solar products, so that people who live in northern part of Kenya where they have access of sunlight can in place of electricity, they can use solar energy and therefore encourage green energy, which is in line with the climate change agenda that we are pushing as a country. Mr. Speaker, with those very, very remarks, I support and congratulate Senator Abbas Mohammed, and I hope this issue can be resolved as soon as possible so that the great people of Wajir County can have an opportunity of also enjoying the services of Kenya Power and Lighting Company. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Roba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the statement by Senator Abbas. I come from a region that the only source of electricity is diesel-powered generators. As you are aware, since the advent of devolution, over 10 years, in these counties, and particularly I take an example of Mandera, we've had more than 10 very, to regular breakdowns. I know that our sister county of Garissa has 50 megawatts of electricity that is solar-powered electricity. And when that was redirected to join the national electricity grid, instead of taking care of Wajir and Mandera that is in dire need, then we are left disadvantaged very, very severely. The concept of devolution needed to bring along some aspect of private investment that was able to take care of employment opportunities as well as income generation for county government. But as a result of inadequate power supply in places like Wajir, Mandera, and other areas that are dependent upon diesel generators in this country, in this 21st century, Kenya needs to be competitively positioned to make sure 47 counties are able to compete in terms of getting investment opportunities and be able to provide opportunities for companies that would like to set up. Now, forget about supporting companies that will require commercial power supply, but domestic power supply in Wajir and in places like Mandera is extremely unreliable and extremely inadequate. And for us to be able to make sure the counties can realize their full potential, it is critical that the ministry concerned is called upon to give us a roadmap to making sure all counties that are dependent upon diesel generators can move to solar generated power and renewable energy in order to make sure that the dependency on diesel generators and the breakdowns can be mitigated. I rise to support and congratulate Senator Abbas for bringing this motion to the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wamatinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I also rise to support this very, very important motion because we know that Kenya has, in the last couple of years, tried so much to break away to become an industrialist country. However, Mr. Speaker, sir, with the cost of power as currently it is, it would be almost impossible to achieve that. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is a common knowledge that our neighboring countries like Ethiopia produce power at a far much cheaper rate as compared to Kenya power. However, it is also very interesting to note, Mr. Speaker, sir, that KenGen does produce power at a cost of 5 shillings and 40 cents per kilowatt, compared to the independent power producers, some of them who are selling to Kenya Power at 173 shillings per the same unit. Mr. Speaker, sir, the question arises why we as a country have come up with legal framework by imposing tariffs, taxes on solar panels, which are supposed to be zero rated, but it is done in a very punitive way that you have to pay the taxes first and then claim later from KRA. Mr. Speaker, sir, counties like Wajir, Marsabit, Mandela, which are known to be very, very hot areas, would enjoy and actually achieve maximum results by using solar power. This would be in addition to the fact that, Mr. Speaker, sir, we may not need long transmission lines moving from one county to the next if we came up with localized solutions like solar power, where each county should be encouraged to set up a solar farm and supply power within its locality. This, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the new administration of the Kenya Kwanza government, with the new PPPs, this would be actually a very, very positive step that we can encourage the counties to take, so that the dependency on Kenya Power, which fluctuates every time, will come to an end. Mr. Speaker, sir, I being the chair of the Energy Committee, I know that there have been a lot of problem challenges, some of them sanctioned by a lack of transparency, lack of accountability, and most unfortunately, lack of commitment from Kenya Power. If you look at the money that they make from supply of power, they're already making too much that they do not mind going to such counties that are outliers to make sure that they supply power. Mr. Speaker, sir, if the government and indeed the ministry undertakes to overhaul power generation strategy, we need to look at more renewable power, and such counties like Wajir, Marsabit, Mandela, Turkana could benefit a lot from solar energy. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is also not lost to this House that we did start a solar wind power project in Turkana, in Marsabit, the Lake Turkana windmill power station, which we know that, Mr. Speaker, sir, it costed the taxpayer a lot of money because the conceptualization of the project, even before completion of the project, there was already a power purchase agreement. Mr. Speaker, sir, you know that this agreement was supposed to make Kenyans pay for the power, regardless of whether they're using it or not. Mr. Speaker, sir, these are things that we must look at. These are things that we must address. And the fact that we are now moving to renewable energy, green energy, we must also come up with a framework that enables such counties that enjoy a lot of sunshine to use solar power as a localized solution. And, Mr. Speaker, sir, maybe it's the high time we do ask the question whether we indeed want to continue with the monopoly of Kenya Power if we want to industrialize this country, because a lack of accountability and transparency, Mr. Speaker, sir, has made this country lose a lot of money. And I see migration of investors from Kenya to Ethiopia and to other neighboring countries where power is far much cheaper. Mr. Speaker, sir, if you look at some times back, we used to have a lot of flower farms in Kenya. Most of them have migrated to Ethiopia where power is affordable. If we want to stop this migration of investors to other countries, we must also address the issue of the cost of power. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, want to thank the Senator for coming up with this very, very important statement. And we as a House must also start thinking about what localized solutions we can get for our counties, because we do not enjoy homogeneity of the counties and their backgrounds. And I think some of them would be doing very, very well if we came up with a localized solution. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I support.
Senator Murgo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also put my ideas and support the Senator for Wajir for this motion. Mr. Speaker, Kenya Power, or power, is a component that is very essential in many, many ways in life. You talk of lighting houses, lighting streets and everywhere, and also keeping of maybe medicine in hospitals, in private sectors, and in many ways. Needless to say, the fact that it enhances industries and in many ways. But the situation and the monopoly that there is in Kenya Power is probably the situation that is putting us places such as Wajir. You can imagine even West Pokot, where there is power plant in Takwel, and yet electricity is not everywhere in West Pokot. There is only a small percentage, probably around Kapenguria, but the rest of the county is not lit because of the sluggishness that there is in Kenya Power and monopoly that they have, so that they are not competing with anyone for supply of power. So I think it is time that there is creation of a competitor for supply of power, so that Kenya Power does not sleep. And even some of their workers and agents corruptly take advantage and manipulate and exaggerate rates such that they make money on their own so that they enrich themselves. And it is because of the monopoly that Kenya Power has on supply of power. There should be a way of pushing Kenya Power to be able to cover everywhere, not where they have been and not where they wish, but to make sure that they are in all the counties, so that our counties are lit and supply of power is everywhere, not in a few places. And so my opinion is that Kenya Power should also look for alternatives that can light up some of the counties, and like somebody has mentioned already, sunshine that there is in the northern belt or districts should be made use of, so that there is an alternative of power rather than depending on electricity only. And therefore, I rise to support the motion. Thank you.
Senator Ledama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the statement by Senator Abbas Mohammed on the issue of electricity. Mr. Speaker, it is not only in Wajir County that we have constant power outbreak. And I think it's about time for us to start thinking seriously. And I'm happy that I'm a member of the Energy Committee, and I share the sentiments of my chairperson in terms of looking at other alternative sources of energy. As I stand here, Mr. Speaker, on a daily basis, I generate about 60 to 70 kilowatts of electricity using solar. When you look at the issues that has been raised by my colleague, there's one which is very sensitive, which is the issue of carbon emission. And I think it's about time, and particularly all pastoralists and everyone else who live in this country, this year has been the hardest year for pastoralists and people who live in the coast on the issue of drought. In developing nations, they are now introducing carbon taxes so that it can be able to deter people from, producing a lot of carbon emission. Because when there's a lot of carbon emission being produced in the air, there's so much which is hidden, or what is referred to as unintended consequences. So, Mr. Speaker, this statement is something that I wish that my committee would go further and try to understand from the government policy, from the Ministry of Energy, why is it so difficult for counties like Wajir to rely 100% on solar? The issues that has been raised here, Mr. Speaker, is when you hear that there are faulty generators. These generators are on a daily basis, creating a lot of carbon emissions in the air. They are creating a lot of noise. They are polluting the environment. So I think we need to be realistic here. Using generators in Wajir, using generators in Marsabit, using generators in Garissa, using generators even in some parts of rural Narok, will not make any sense to be able to generate electricity. Why not invest in solar energy? Remove the taxes completely on solar panels so that you encourage more people to be able to come and invest and generate electricity. Mr. Speaker, one of the other issues that I would like my committee on energy to include in this statement is to try and come up with a date. This time, not the policy, but the date when the new government will liberalize the energy sector 100%, so that a county like Wajir, the governor of that county, can be able to introduce subsidies or even maybe incentives for people who can be able to come and generate power using solar and distribute that power there. We need now to think about other mini power generating plants. There's no point of us relying on Kenya Power to be able to be the only off-taker of power. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this statement, and I hope that we can be serious to ensure that we resolve this issue. The points that Senator has raised, the issue of carbon emission is something which is very serious. I hope members of the National Assembly who could be watching this proceeding today will think of introducing a carbon tax. This will be able to put some sanity there. And that carbon tax should actually be put on Kenya Power so that they can stop using those generators. Number two, also the government should come up with incentives. Do away completely with the taxes on solar panels. It is ridiculous to put taxes on solar panels, yet we do not have power in this country. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Senator Omtata.
Honorable Speaker, I stand to support the motion, and in doing so, I would like to point out that Kenya Power is a very strange animal because of the percentages that it has played around with in shareholding. It masquerades as a parastatal. In reality, it's not under the control of government. It's controlled by individuals. Some have got even monopoly shareholding. And as such, being a strategic organ, electricity being a strategic sector, just like roads, Kenya Power is virtually controlled by individuals, and the Kenyan state has got no mechanism for intervening in the power sector. So it will be important either for the government to take steps to renationalize Kenya Power, or to set up a serious distribution company that can carry out the mandate of Kenya Power. You will find that even new companies coming up are hamstrung to distribute electricity because Kenya Power tends to claim that the national grid is a private property. The national grid is not a private property. It was built using taxpayers' money. And why Kenya Power should lock out its competitors from using the national grid is something that the government needs to address. We also have the question of PPAs, power purchase agreements, which are skewed against the Kenyan voter, the Kenyan taxpayer or consumer of electricity. And these are the things that have pushed the cost of power through the roof in Kenya to a point whereby we cannot compete. In supporting this motion, I call upon the government of Kenya to get serious with the question of electricity in this country. To either, and to get mechanisms for having tools with which they can intervene in the market to control and regulate the cost of power. Without doing so, we are staring at a total failure of our economy because the cost of inputs, the cost of production is bad. And if you go to some areas like Western Province and in particular in Busia, we can hardly talk of Kenya Power and lighting. We talk of Kenya Power and darkness. Because most of the time you are in the dark. It keeps on going out, it keeps on going off. Where there is a where you have some small shower, the lights go off. And then you also find that the way they have laid out their distribution network is such that where they are not able to localize power failure, so that if there's a small problem in one area, the entire region is cast into darkness. You wonder what their engineers are doing instead of coming up with a distribution network whereby they can isolate a local problem and deal with it, and the other sectors continue running. Mr. Speaker, sir, recently you saw the suckers around transformers that were allegedly imported into this country, and they were obsolete. They could not be deployed. Nobody has been held accountable for that. And so it looks like the cartels that are controlling electricity in this country, or the power sector, are untouchable. As regards renewable energy, we must realize that yes, the future is in renewable energy, but currently, what we have and what is working is the forms of energy, the traditional forms of energy, which include power. So as much as we push for solar power, wind power, and for the removal of taxes in these renewable sources of energy, we must realize that a big chunk of our electricity in this country is renewable. We have electricity from geothermal, we have electricity from hydroelectric. And I think under President Kibaki, he had made a conscious effort to eliminate these private power generators, these diesel-based generators. It is the Jubilee government which brought them back. So I would urge that the government goes back to what the government of national unity did. The government of President Mwai Kibaki and the Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga did to rein in these private power generators who have signed very skewed PPAs, some which we pay up to 36 billion shillings a year without even getting a unit of electricity. But the contracts are there. I also think that the PPAs must be subject to Article 10 of the Constitution. There has to be transparency, there has to be public participation on the PPAs. Kenya Power cannot just sit in a dark room with somebody, sign a PPA, and condemn Kenyans to pay. Right now, Mr. Speaker, sir, if you look at your bill for power, it clearly shows that you pay a very small fraction for the power you consume. The rest is going to make some people rich. And it is not acceptable that under the cover of the law, Kenyan taxpayers and Kenyan consumers of electricity are exploited. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I stand to support the motion and pray that it passes. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, I have noted the way we handle statements and requests for statements under Standing Order 52 and Standing Order 53. And from the way a member requests for statement, we proceed to debate. And we shouldn't be debating a request for statement. We ought to debate the statement when tabled by the relevant committee. And therefore, going forward, when Honorable Senator rises to request for a statement, unless there's something lacking and the Senator wishes the relevant committee to consider as it retires to consider that request, then you can rise and make an additional request for more areas that maybe the Honorable Senator who is requesting has left out. Because as it stands now, we're basically debating a non-existent statement. So as we proceed, kindly bear in mind, if we do that, we'll use very little time to do that, and then we will be able to use more time when these statements are tabled, and we can proceed to debate them. So, Honorable Osoti, what is your point of order? And what is your point of order? And I hope
Speaker,
it's not,
sir, the tradition.
I hope it's not referring
Yes,
to the.
what I want to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that the tradition of this House is that we have not been debating those statements. Once you request for a statement, it is referred to the committee. The committee might summon you to discuss that statement, and after that, it doesn't come back to the House. That is what has been happening for the last 5 years or 6 years I've been here. So unless maybe, because the issues that maybe have been mentioned in the statement are the issues that the member thinks or is of his opinion that are of concern to him. But now the members maybe want to enrich that statement, and they may not get an opportunity to come back to the House for further debate. As last week, the Honorable Senator for Embu raised an issue about over-taxation of Mugoka vehicles that are going to Mombasa. And as a Senator for Mombasa, it was of concern to me. So if we are not allowed to ride on those statements, then we shall be missing some issues that will be of great help to this House and to the country in general. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Faki, if you listen to me carefully, because I'm afraid you didn't, I said if an honorable senator stands to request for a statement, and if you want to enrich it, not debate it, enrich it, you will get an opportunity. But what I have noticed going for the few days we have been handling these statements, we're basically debating. We're not enriching these statements. So for enriching statements, that is allowed. And when you feel the statement is inadequate and you want to add another component to it for the committee to consider, that is allowed. Honorable Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to request for a statement regarding the drought situation and the relief food distribution. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on the drought situation and the relief food distribution in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, in the statement, the committee should do the following. 1, state the reasons for the failure by the national government to declare the prevailing drought and famine as a national disaster, despite over 4.5 million Kenyans facing starvation. 2, explain why the government has reverted to the physical food distribution system that is riddled with procurement and logistical challenges and prone to abuses instead of recommended cash transfers to the affected population. 3, Mr. Speaker, explain the input of the Directorate of Social Protection in relief food distribution, noting that the Directorate has over the years developed good databases for vulnerable beneficiary groups with strong mechanisms of identification, registration, and vetting of vulnerable households, and explain the reasons for bypassing the Directorate in food distribution program in favor of the Kenya National Trading Corporation and other agencies. 4, outline the measures put in place by the government, if any, to promote drought preparedness and alternative climate resilient livelihood option as a long-term sustainable measure to promote vulnerable population from drought. 5,
state the amount of funds allocated by the national and county government to tackle the situation, as well as money donated by donor agencies and well-wishers, including private sector, to help mitigate the drought situation across the country, stating accountability measures put in place to prevent pilferage of the said fund. 6, explain the basis of funds being withdrawn from the consolidated fund to fund purchase of relief food without appropriation by Parliament, noting that any expenditure above 1 billion Kenya shillings must be sanctioned by Parliament under supplementary estimates, hence necessitating the need to declare the drought a national disaster. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, call for the audit of the relief food distribution program and the drought mitigation funds by the Office of the Auditor General to ascertain whether the funds have been utilized in the best interest of the public. Mr. Speaker, if you allow me to say one or two things.
You may not be able to do that.
Thank you, very well, very well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senator, yes, what is your point of order, Honorable Boni Kulala?
Mr. Speaker, whereas I thank the Senator of Vihiga for that very important statement, but Mr. Speaker, is it in order to state categorically that the money being spent is not being drawn in accordance with the government financial regulations and procedures, without confirming to this House that the money we are spending is not from the disaster fund? Because in our budgets over the years, we have a disaster, an emergency fund, and we have a disaster fund. Without that proof, can we allow him, Mr. Speaker, to be seen to be in order when he has not tabled anything to show that the government is spending from right, left, center? Could Mr. Speaker, could he substantiate that before we accept the statement?
Honorable Senator Osotsi, you requested for a statement, and in that statement, it will be upon the committee to investigate such matters, and therefore, stating in finality will not give room to the committee to investigate that matter. And I think on the issue of where the funds are drawn, whether legal or otherwise, that you should leave it to the committee to investigate and report. Honorable Senator Cherangei, please make your request for statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you are aware, Kenyans from diaspora in the month of February, March, sent over 80 billion Kenya shillings, and the phasing out of the current passport will end or 31st November 2022. Mr. Speaker, in pursuant to Standing Order 53.1, seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on the issue of lack of A-series passports at the Department of Immigration. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee should, 1, state the reasons for the shortage of A-series passports, that is 32 pages, at the immigration offices, hence forcing applicants to pay Kenya shillings 7,550 shillings for C-series, which is 64 pages, which are only ones available at the moment at the Immigration Department. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, explain why Kenyans who had earlier paid Kenya shillings 4,550 shillings for the A-series passports are being forced to pay an additional 3,000, and yet they had, while applying, made their choices or the choice on the basis of information available on the e-Citizen website provided. Mr. Speaker, the third, state or provide a comprehensive report on the exact number of Kenyans who have been forced to adjust their payments and what amount of extra money has been collected from 4,500 shillings to be upgraded for 3,000 shillings, which comes in total to 7,550 shillings. Mr. Speaker, finally, state when the Department of Immigration under the Ministry of National Government and Interior will resolve this matter once and for all and allow Kenyans to enjoy the services. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Next order.
Order number 8, election of members to the East African Legislative Assembly.
Honorable Senators, as you may be aware, pursuant to Rule 15(1) of the East African Legislative Assembly elections, election of members of the Assembly Rules 2017, the clerks of the Houses of Parliament, who pursuant to Rule 2 of the said rules are the presiding officers, by Gazette Notice number 14039 of 16th November 2022, and in the Daily Nation and the Standard newspapers of 16th November 2022, appointed today, Thursday, 17th November 2022, as the day for the election of members of the East African Legislative Assembly. I would like to provide guidance to the House on the procedure that we shall follow in conducting the election of members of the East African Legislative Assembly, EALA. The election exercise will be undertaken pursuant to the East African Legislative Assembly elections, election of members of the Assembly, Rules 2017. Honorable Senators, the election shall be conducted here in the Senate chamber and in the National Assembly chamber, being the venues appointed for this purpose by the presiding officers. In accordance with Rule 2 of the East African Legislative Assembly elections, election of members of the Assembly Rules 2017, the Clerk of the Senate and the Clerk of the National Assembly are the presiding officers, while the Speaker of the Senate and the Speaker of the National Assembly are the returning officers in the respective houses. For purposes of the election, a voter is defined in Rule 2 as a member of the National Assembly or a member of the Senate. Honorable Senators, with respect to the conduct of the election in the Senate, Rule 16(1) of the East African Legislative Assembly elections, election of members of the Assembly Rules 2017, requires the presiding officer to prepare and at the appointed time for the election to issue to each senator one ballot paper on which shall be written in alphabetical order the names of all duly nominated candidates, their gender, age, and county. The candidates have been clustered under the headings of the names of the respective categories of nomination in accordance with Rule 5 and 9. I confirm that ballot papers have been prepared in the manner required. Voting will be done through roll call, where the clerk will call out the names of senators in alphabetical order. Honorable Senators, senators who are present, on signing the ballot issuance register, which is available with the presiding officer, will be issued with one ballot paper. Each senator, on receiving a ballot paper, which has been duly stamped, shall proceed to one of the ballot booths, which are located on either side of the chair, and secretly record his or her votes by putting a mark in a space provided on the ballot paper for recording of votes against the names of the preferred candidates as clustered. Honorable Senators, Rule 6(1) of the East African Legislative Assembly elections, election of members of the Assembly Rules 2017, provides for the allocation ratio for each party, which shall be 3 times the figure arrived at by multiplying the number of elected members of that party by such number as the Joint Select Committee shall determine and dividing the result by the total number of elected members of parliament. As such, kindly note that the ballot paper is divided into two clusters. That is Kenya Kwanza Alliance and the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party. The Kenya Kwanza Alliance Coalition cluster has 15 candidates, while the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party cluster has 12 candidates. In respect of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance Coalition Partner cluster, which consists of 15 candidates, a senator will be entitled to vote for not more than 5 candidates. The persons to be declared elected in respect of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance cluster shall be 5 candidates with the highest number of votes, who must include at least 2 candidates of either gender. In respect to the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party cluster, which consists of 12 candidates, a senator will be entitled to vote for not more than 4 candidates. The persons to be declared elected in respect of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance Coalition Party cluster shall be 4 candidates with the highest number of votes, who must include at least 1 candidate of either gender. Honorable Senators, please bear in mind that in accordance with Rule 17.3, a voter can only cast as many votes as the number of the total candidates to be elected. In this case, 9 candidates. Honorable Senators, you may walk in. Take your seats, Honorable Senators, so that we can proceed. Senator Tabitha. Kindly take your seat. Senator Tabitha, acquaint yourself with the standing orders. When the chair is upstanding, you take your seat. Honorable Senators, it is also important to note that in reckoning the candidates to be declared elected, Section 4.4 of the East African Legislative Assembly Elections Act 2011 requires that at least 1/3 of the elected members shall reflect either gender. Honorable Senators, let me also clarify that under Rule 17.4, where a voter casts more votes than the number of candidates required to be elected, the ballot paper of that voter shall be regarded as spoiled. Rule 17.5 provides that a ballot paper shall not be regarded as spoiled where the voter casts a number of votes that falls below the number of candidates to be elected. In accordance with Rule 17.6, a senator who accidentally spoils a ballot paper while the voting is in progress is entitled, on surrendering the spoiled ballot paper to the presiding officer, to be issued with another ballot paper in place of the spoiled one. Honorable Senators, after marking the ballot paper and while still in the booth, you are required to fold your ballot paper and proceed to deposit it in the ballot box placed on the table of the Senate and resume your seat. Honorable Senators, as required by Rule 18.1, once all senators have cast their votes, I will appoint 2 senators, one from either side of the political coalitions, to be counting agents for the candidates. In accordance with Rule 18.2, the presiding officer shall, in the presence of the counting agents, count and tally the votes cast. Honorable Senators, pursuant to the provisions of Rule 19, when the votes have been counted and the results of the election ascertained, A, the presiding officer shall record the results of the tally and report to the Senate the results of the election together with the number of votes recorded for each candidate under the respective clusters. B, the returning officer shall thereafter send a message to the National Assembly communicating the results of the Senate, which the Speaker of the National Assembly, as the other returning officer, will announce to the National Assembly. And the presiding officer of the National Assembly will likewise report the results of the National Assembly elections to the National Assembly, and the returning officer of the National Assembly will send a message to the Senate communicating the National Assembly election results. Honorable Senators, considering the number of members in the National Assembly, the election exercise will most likely take longer in the National Assembly than in the Senate. In the period before conclusion of the voting in the National Assembly and transmission of both the National Assembly election results and the combined results of the elections conducted in both houses to the Senate, we shall proceed with other business scheduled in today's order paper. Upon receipt of the message from the National Assembly on the results of the National Assembly and the combined results from both houses of Parliament, I will proceed to announce the results to the Senate. In the event that there will be need to suspend the proceedings of the Senate for the convenience of the House, a determination will be made at that time. Honorable Senators, let me also point out that in the event of a tie between two or more candidates amongst those with the highest votes in any of the clusters, the process will be repeated in both houses between the respective candidates. As I conclude, I would like to remind honorable senators that during the entire election exercise, the East African Legislative Assembly election of members of the Assembly Rules 2017, and the Senate standing orders are applicable and will be enforced by the Speaker as necessary. Finally, honorable senators, I wish to draw to your attention to Standing Order 91 on decorum during division, which require, among others, that senators shall maintain order in the Senate and shall be in the designated seats and shall remain seated until the results is announced. That said, honorable senators, we will forthwith commence the elections, and I now direct the presiding officer to proceed. I thank you. What is your point of order, Honorable Kalwale?
Mr. Speaker, it's just for further clarity and for avoidance of doubt. I have not recently read the rules that you are referring to. Because we are men and women of this world, Mr. Speaker, I would appeal to you that if the rules don't so state, then please, because we are going to have our exercise end earlier than the National Assembly, do not send a message there before they conclude theirs. The temptation can naturally be that upon knowing the outcome here, and probably a preferred candidate, in quotes, is missing 2 votes, can be assisted there to unfairly defeat another one. I would request, Mr. Speaker, unless the rules so say, that you sit on our message until they have concluded, then you exchange messages at the same time. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Kalal Boni, the message that will be sent to the National Assembly shall not be read until they've concluded their voting. It shall not be read midway until they have concluded their voting. And therefore, it shall not in any way prejudice the process of voting in the National Assembly. They will not know the results until the very tail end when they've concluded theirs. Let's proceed. What is your point of order, Chiranke?
Mr. Speaker, just so that it allows the House to move with speed and also assist. I don't know, I didn't hear your directions that the bars may be drawn so that we avoid our people maybe standing or the procedure, because maybe I need guidance that when such matter, which is very urgent and important, should allow the bars be drawn, or this one is different, because normally, Mr. Speaker, whenever we go to division, the directions and the tradition of the House is normally that we draw the bar so that it allows easy and seamless movement and allow non-interference from outside, Mr. Speaker, because strangers might end up walking into the House. Mr. Speaker, I think that we need direction so that I can see the Deputy Speaker, the Minority Whip, and others standing at the doorway, and they are smiling, which means they are transacting serious business, not that one withstanding, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chiranke, we only draw the bar when we go to division. We are here together. Order, Senator Kalwale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just to augment the point raised by the Senator of Nandi, I'm equally surprised, Mr. Speaker, that we are going into division. And yet the division bell has not been rung. I would have expected it be rung. This is a solemn, very important process for members, wherever they are in the precincts, to come to the House. The bar is drawn, and we start voting, Mr. Speaker. Please guide the House.
Senator Boni Kalwale, this is not a division. When we get there, the division bell will be rung. We're not there yet. Yes, presiding officer, proceed with the election exercise.
Honorable Senators, before you on the table is a ballot box, which I think which will be displayed. It is empty. Please show. It will now be sealed. When called out, you will please come to the table. You will sign the register. After signing the register, you will be given a ballot paper, which will be stamped, and then you can proceed to either side. If you are sitting on my left, please come to the left where you will sign the register and proceed to the ballot, to the booths that are on the left. If you are sitting on the right, please come to the right-hand side and sign the register, get the ballot paper, and proceed to the booths on the right. Where's the register? So we are ready to begin. I will call out the names. Abbas Sheikh Mohammed. be sure yuko kwanza. There is a pen, there are pens at the table. You don't need to find one, please. Abdurrahman Miraj Abdullahi. Adan Dulo Fatuma. Asige Crystal Kegehi. Boy Isa Juma. Honorable Senators, in accordance with the rules, I have a spoiled ballot paper, so I am issuing another ballot paper. So, chukua. So, andika. Cherarke Samson. Cherarke Samson. Cheriot Aaron Kipkirui. Chesang Alan Kiprotich. Chesang Alan Kiprotich. Chute Mohammed Said. An empty box. Ekomwa James Lomenen. Ekomwa James Lomenen. Haji Abdul Mohammed. Kajwang Moses Otieno. Kamar Margaret Jepkoech. Kamar Margaret Jepkoech. I need to know it's empty. But she doesn't know. They don't know. There are two people right now. Oh, you decided you are. Kamau Joseph Githuku. Kathuri Murungi. Keroche Tabitha Karanja. Halwale Boni. Please go to the left. Please go to the left. Kibwana Hamida Ali. Honorable Senators, there's a spoiled ballot paper, so we'll be issuing another one. Kipkiror William Cheptumo. Korir Joyce Chepkoech. Korir Joyce Chepkoech. Lelegwe Steve Ltumbesi. Lemaletian Hezena. Maanzo Daniel Kitonga. This way, to the right. Madzayo Stewart Mwachiru. Mandago Jackson Kiplagat. Mandago Jackson Kiplagat. Mbogwa George Mungai. Mbogwa George Mungai. Medhu John Moher. Mogeni Eric Okongo. Fold. Mohammed Shakila Abdallah. Montet Betty Batuli. Muma Catherine Muyeka. Mundigi Alexander Munyi. Mundigi Alexander Munyi. Mungatana Danson Buya. Morango James Kamau. Mudhama Agnes Kavindu. Mutinda Maureen Tabitha. Mwaruma Jones Mwashushe. Mwenda Gataya Mofire. Mwenye Haji Mohamed Faki. Mwenzangu Raphael Chimera. Mwenzangu Raphael Chimera. Nderito John Kinywa. Ndwati Veronica Waheti. Ngoge Joe Joseph Nyoto. Nyamo Karen Njeri. Oginga Oburu. Ogola Beatrice Akinyi. Ojienda Odhiambo Tom. Okenyuri Esther Anyieni. Okech Eddie Gisheru. Okech Eddie Gisheru. Okoiti Andrew Omtata. Olekina Ledama. It's okay. Omar Sheikh Mariam. Omar Mariam Sheikh. Onyonka Richard Momoima. Senator. Oruoba Gloria Magoma. Oruoba Gloria Magoma. Osotsi Godfrey Atieno. Recha Julius Mugor. Roba Ali Ibrahim. Seki Lenku Olekanar. Sifuna Edwin Watenya. Siengo Beth Kalunda. Siengo Beth Kalunda. Dhangwa Paul Karungo. Tobiko Peris Pesi. Wakili Hilary Kiprotich Sigei. Wamatinga Wahome. Wamatinga Wahome. Wambua Enoch Kiyo. Asige Crystal Kegehi. Honorable Senators, final call. Asige Crystal Kegehi. Cherarke Samson Kiprotich. Chesang Alan Kiprotich. Ekomwa James Lomenen. Korir Joyce Chepkoech. Mbogwa George Mungai. Mundigi Alexander Munyi. Mudhama Agnes Kavindu. Nyamo Karen Njeri. Oginga Oburu. Oruoba Gloria Magoma.
Honorable Senators, kindly take your seats. The voting exercise is now concluded. We have to proceed to counting and tallying. Before we go to the next stage, I'd wish to appoint 2 senators as tallying agents, one from each side, either side of the House. On the side of Azimio, Honorable Senator Siengo. On the side of Kenya Kwanza, the Honorable Senator Tabitha Mutinda. You may proceed, Clerk.
So, Honorable Senators, we will now, in the presence of the counting agents, unlock the box, empty the contents thereof, and commence the counting. We are ready now. The ballot box will be emptied and the counting will commence in the presence of the gathered Senate.
We want to start. The first one is Charles Frederick. We are starting with the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. The The first one is Charles Frederick Muteti, then Iman Falda Deko, Iringo Cyprian Kubai, Kering Zipora Jesang, Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya Coalition Party, Ali Fatuma Gedi, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka. No, you're okay, you're okay. Odinga Winnie Imgad, Shabal Suleiman Said. The last one. Are you okay? Kwanza Coalition, you have seen they have marked 3, is okay. Then under Azimio la Umoja, he has marked 3, it is okay. So we start. We start with Kenya Kwanza Alliance, Aden Abdikadir Omar, Charles Frederick Muteti, Sankok David Ole. Azimio la Umoja, One Coalition. I hope you're okay. Ali Fatuma Gedi, Dirie Abdullahi Mohammed, Shabal Suleiman Said. Are you okay? Under Kenya Kwanza Coalition, we have a maximum of 5. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have a maximum of 4, which is okay. So we proceed. We'll start. Charles Frederick Muteti, Hassan Omar Hassan, Iman Falhada Deko, David Ole Sankok, Tommy Tom Lillian Chepto. Are we okay? Under Azimio la Umoja, One Coalition, Ali Fatuma Gedi, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, Kega James Madenge Kanini, then Shabal Suleiman Said. Are we okay? So under Kenya Kwanza Coalition, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And under Azimio, we have 4. So okay, we can proceed. Kenya Kwanza Alliance, Aden Abdikadir Omar, Charles Frederick Muteti, Hassan Omar Hassan, Iman Falhada Deko, Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. Under Azimio la Umoja, Ali Fatuma Gedi, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, Winnie Imgad, lastly Shabal Suleiman Said. Are we okay? Under Kenya Kwanza Coalition, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. It's below, so it's okay. Under Azimio la Umoja is 1, 2, 3, 4, so you're okay. We start with Kenya Kwanza Alliance, Aden Abdikadi Omar, Mwangi Godfrey Maina, Sankok David Ole, then Tommy Tom Lillian Chepto. Under Azimio la Umoja One coalition, we have Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, Kega James Madhenge Kanini, Odinga Winnie Imgad, then Shabal Suleiman Said. You okay? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's okay, that's the maximum. Then under Azimio, we have 4. So we start Aden Abdikadi Omar, Charles Frederick Muteti, Hassan Omar Hassan, Iman Falhada Deko, Iringo Cyprian Kubai. Under Azimio la Umoja One coalition, Kalonzo, under Azimio is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we proceed. The first one, Hassan Omar Hassan. So Hassan Omar Hassan, Iman Falhada Deko, Kering Zipora Kurgat, Mwangi Godfrey Maina, David Ole Sankok. You okay? Under Azimio la Umoja, Ali Fatuma Gedi, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, Odinga Winnie Imgad, Shabal Suleiman Said. Are you okay? Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we proceed. Charles Frederick Muteti, under Kenya Kwanza. Hassan Omar Hassan. Iman Falhada Deko. Kering Zipora Jesan Kurgat. And lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Ali Fatuma Gedi, Busire Timothy Museti, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, and lastly, Kega James Madhenge Kanini. We are good? Kenya Kwanza is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And Azimio la Umoja is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are okay, we can proceed. Starting with Kenya Kwanza, Aden Abdikadir Omar, Hassan Omar Hassan, Iman Falhada Deko, Mwangi Godfrey Maina, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition, we have Bosire Timothy Museti, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, Kega James Madenge Kanini, lastly Odinga Winnie Imgad. You okay? Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 3 votes there. Under Azimio la Umoja is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's fine. Kenya Kwanza Alliance, Aden Abdikadir Omar, Charles Frederick Muteti, and Hassan Omar Hassan. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, Kega James Madenge Kanini, Odinga Winnie Imgad, lastly Shabal Suleiman Said. You're good? Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And under Azimio la Umoja, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we start. Charles Frederick Muteti, Hassan Omar Hassan, Iman Falhada Deko, Kering Zipora Jasan Krugat, lastly David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, Ali Fatuma Gedi, Bosire Timothy Museti, Kega James Madenge Kanini, lastly Shabal Suleiman Said. You okay? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So good. Azimio is 1, 2, 3, 4. Then let's start. Aden Abdikadir Omar, Charles Frederick Muteti, Hassan Omar Hassan, Iman Falhada Deko, then Kering Zipora Jisang Krugat. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Ali Fatuma Gedi, Bosire Timothy Moseti, then Mugali Justus Kizito, lastly Odinga Winnie Imgad. We are good? Under Kenya Kwanza, we have 1, 2, 3, which is okay. Then Azimio is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can proceed. The first one is Iringo Cyprian Kubai. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. Lastly, Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Iringo. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. Then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Under Azimio la Umoja One coalition, we start with Ali Fatuma Gedi, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, Kega James Madhenge Kanini, lastly Odinga Winnie Imgad. We okay? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Azimio la Umoja, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we proceed. The first one is Charles Frederick Muteti. The second one, Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. And lastly, Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Ali Fatuma Gedi, Busire Timothy Moseti, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. You okay? Under Kenya Kwanza, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Then under Azimio is 1, 2, 3, 4. The first one is Charles Frederick Muteti. Hassan Omar Hassan. Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. Lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Ali Fatuma Gedi, then Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, then Odinga Winnie Imgad, and lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. Are you okay? Under Kenya Kwanza is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Under Azimio is 1, 2, 3, 4. The first one, Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. And lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Bosire Timothy Moseti, then Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, then Mugali Justus Kizito, And lastly, Odinga Winnie Imgad. We are good? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the next one, we don't, yeah, just blank. Yeah, so you're good. So let's start with Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Kurgat. Lastly, David Ole Sankoko. Under Azimio la Umoja, there is no marking. Tuko sawa?
That's a spoiled vote. It's only one side which is marked, the other side is not marked.
It's the one for Kisi Senator. Kisi.
Yeah, so
It's the
you
Kisi
can't,
Senator.
you can't
Onyonka.
count that.
Onyonka, yeah, it's the one who missed.
Why did he?
Honorable Senators, that is not a spoiled vote, and it has been counted, and we proceed. Please look at the rules carefully. Please look at the rules carefully. That is not a spoiled vote, so long as you have not voted more than 4 or more than 5 on either side. Proceed.
Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Under Azimio la Umoja is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are good. We start with Aden Abdikadir Omar, then Hassan Omar Hassan, then Iman Falhada Deko, then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat, then lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja One coalition, we have Ali Fatuma Gedi, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, Kega James Madenge Kanini, and lastly, Odinga Winnie Imgad. Tuko sawa? Under Kenya Kwanza, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Azimio is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he has marked. Yeah, so.
That's a spoiled vote. Ballot. It is spoiled because it's 5 and 5. It's spoiled. 5 and 5. It is a spoiled ballot.
So we mark, eh? This is under Kenya Kwanza. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's within. Under Azimio is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
What is it? The total is 10, it's spoiled.
So you add another plus one at the back.
So you okay? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's good. Under Azimio is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are good. The first one is Charles Frederick Muteti, then Hassan Omar Hassan, then Iman Falhada Deko, then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat, and lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Ali Fatuma Gedi, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, Mugali Justus Kizito, and lastly, Odinga Winnie Imgad. Are you okay? Under Kenya Kwanza, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're okay. The first one is Aden Abdikadir Omar, then Iman Falhada Deko, then Lowoia Rebecca, then Mwangi Godfrey Maina, lastly David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, Kega James Madenge Kanini, Odinga Winnie Imgad, lastly Shabal Suleiman Said. Are we good? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And under Azimio la Umoja, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's okay. The first one is Charles Frederick Muteti. The second one is Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. Then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja 1 coalition is Ali Fatuma Gedi, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, then Odinga Winnie Imgad, and lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. You're good? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, which is within the limits. Under Azimio, we have 1, 2, which is okay. We start with Charles Frederick Muteti, then Iringo Cyprian Kubai, then Mwangi Godfrey Maina, lastly, Sheikh Yasser Ali. Sheikh Yasser Ali. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Kega James Madenge Kanini, Kioni Jeremiah Ngayu, And that's all. Okay? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Under Azimio is 1, 2, 3, 4. So good. Starting with Kenya Kwanza is Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Lastly, Sheikh Yasser Ali. Under Azimio la Umoja, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, Kega James Madhenge Kanini, then Odinga Winnie Imgad, lastly Shabal Suleiman Said. You're good? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And under Azimio is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's okay. The first one is Aden Abdikadir Omar. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Then Nyambane Joel Okengo. Under Azimio, we have Ali Fatuma Gedi, Bosire Timothy Moseti, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, and lastly, Mugali Justus Kizito. Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, which is okay. Then under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We are good. The first one is Aden Abdikadir Omar. Then Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Ali Fatuma Gedi, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, Kega James Madhenge Kanini, and lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. You're good? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And under Azimio is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're okay. The first one under Kenya Kwanza is Charles Frederick Muteti, Hassan Omar Hassan, Iman Falhada Deko, then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat, lastly Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Ali Fatuma Gedi, then Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, then Odinga Winnie Imgad, lastly Shabal Suleiman Said. Okay. Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're good. And under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're okay. So under Kenya Kwanza is Charles Frederick Muteti, Hassan Omar Hassan, Iman Falhad Adeko, Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat, then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, Kega James Madenge Kanini, then Odinga Winnie Imgad, and lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. You're good? Under Kenya Kwanza, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Then under Azimio la Umoja is 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's start with Kenya Kwanza. The first one is Charles Frederick Muteti, then Hassan Omar Hassan, then Iman Falhad Adeko, then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat, lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Ali Fatuma Gedi, then Kega James Madenge Kanini, then Odinga Winnie Imgad, and lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. Okay? So Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have just, there are 2, which is okay, it's within the limits. Then under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3. So we proceed and do the counting. The first one is Iringo Cyprian Kubai, then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, then Kega James Madenge Kanini, and lastly, Odinga Winnie Imgad. We are good? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, within. Then under Azimio la Umoja, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first one is Charles Frederick Muteti, then Iman Falhad Adeko, then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Bosire Timothy Museti, then Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, then Kega James Madenge Kanini, and lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. You okay? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So, good. The first one, under Kenya Kwanza, is Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhad Adeko. Then Iringo Cyprian Kubai. Then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. We started with Iringo Cyprian Kubai, then Mwangi Godfrey Maina, then David Ole Sankok. Azimio la Umoja, is Ali Fatuma Gedi. Then Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka. Then Kega James Madenge Kanini. And lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. You're good? Under Kenya Kwanza, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we are good. Under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. The first one is Hassan Omar Hassan under Kenya Kwanza. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Iringo Cyprian Kubai. Then Iringo Cyprian Kubai. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. And lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja coalition, the first one is Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka. Then Kega James Madenge Kanini. Then Odinga Winnie Imgad. And lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. Sawa. Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And under Azimio la Umoja is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, then the first one under Kenya Kwanza is Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. Then lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Ali Fatuma Gedi, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, then Kega James Madenge Kanini, and lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. Okay? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Under Azimio is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we start with Kenya Kwanza is Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. Lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio, we have Ali Fatuma Gedi, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, then Odinga Winnie Imgad, lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. Tuko sawa? Under Kenya Kwanza, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Under Kenya Kwanza, Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iringo Cyprian Kubai. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. Then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka. Then Kega James Madenge Kanini. Then Odinga Winnie Imgad. And lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. You okay? So Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Under Kenya Kwanza, we start with Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Then David Ole Sankok. And lastly, To Ann Cherono. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Bosire Timothy Moseti, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, then Odinga Winnie Imgad, and lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. Tuko sawa? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Under Azimio is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So starting with Kenya Kwanza, we have Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. Then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. And lastly, Sankok David Ole. Under Azimio la Umoja, we start with Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, then Kega James Madenge Kanini, then Odinga Winnie Imgad, and lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. Good? Under Kenya Kwanza, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Under Kenya Kwanza, we have Charles Frederick Muteti, then Hassan Omar Hassan, then Iman Falhada Deko, then Kering Zipora Jesang Kurgat, then lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio, we have Bosire Timothy Moseti, then Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, then Odinga Winnie Imgad, and lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. You're good? Under Kenya Kwanza, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So starting with Kenya Kwanza is Charles Frederick Muteti, then Hassan Omar Hassan, then Iman Falhada Deko, then Mwangi Godfrey Maina, and lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, Kega James Madenge Kanini, Then Odinga Winnie Imgad. And lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. Tuko sawa? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Starting with Kenya Kwanza, the first one is Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. The third is Lowoya Rebecca. Then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. And lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka. Then Mugali Justus Kizito. Then Odinga Winnie Imgad. And lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. You okay? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Under Azimio is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Kenya Kwanza Alliance, Charles Frederick Muteti, Hassan Omar Hassan, Iman Falhada Deko, then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat, and lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, we start with Ali Fatuma Gedi, then Dirie Abdullahi Mohammed, then Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, and lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. You proceed. Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Which is good. The first one under Kenya Kwanza is Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. Then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, we start with Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, then Kega James Madenge Kanini, then Odinga Winnie Imgad, and lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. We proceed. Under Kenya Kwanza, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And Azimio is just blank. So Kenya Kwanza is Aden Abdikadir Omar, then Charles Frederick Muteti, then Hassan Omar Hassan, then Iringo Cyprian Kubai, and lastly, Nyambane Joel Okengo. And under Azimio, it's not marked as you can see. Yeah. This one under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And under Azimio la Umoja is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So starting with Kenya Kwanza, the first one is Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Iringo Cyprian Kubai. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Kurgat. And lastly, Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Under Azimio, the first one is Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka. Then Kega James Madenge Kanini. Then Mugali Justus Kizito. And lastly, Odinga Winnie Imgad. Tuko sawa? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Under Azimio, you have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's good. Under Kenya Kwanza is Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. Then lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, we start with Ali Fatuma Gedi. Then Bosire Timothy Moseti. Then Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka. And lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. We proceed. Under Kenya Kwanza, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Under Azimio la Umoja is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we are good. The first one, under Kenya Kwanza, is Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. Then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. And lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Ali Fatuma Gedi. Then Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka. Then Odinga Winnie Imgad. Lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. Tuko sawa? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Good. Under Azimio is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Starting with Kenya Kwanza, the first one is Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iringo Cyprian Kubai. Then Lowoya Rebecca. Lastly, Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Under Azimio la Umoja, the first one is Ali Fatuma Gedi. Then Bosire Timothy Museti. Then Mugali Justus Kizito. And lastly, Nakusa Beatrice Asukul. You okay? Huh? You okay?
Esther. Esther.
But we had finished this one, eh? Tumemaliza.
Honorable Senators, one of the counting and tallying agents is tired and needs to be relieved. And that is Honorable Senator Tabitha Mutinda. Do we... Senator Joyce Korir, would you volunteer to be a... Oh, Esther. Thank you. Senator Esther will relieve Senator Tabitha.
Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, which is within the limits. Under Azimio la Umoja, I just marked 2, which is okay. Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we start with Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iringo Cyprian Kubai. Then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Then under Azimio la Umoja, the first one is Dirie Abdullahi Mohammed. The next one is Kega James Madenge Kanini. There are only 2 marked. You are good? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance is for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Under Azimio is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we are good. Okay, we start with Kenya Kwanza. The first one is Aden Abdikadir Omar. The next one is Charles Frederick Muteti. The next is Hassan Omar Hassan. The next one is Iman Falhad Adeko. And the last one is Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. Under Azimio, we have Bosire Timothy Moseti, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, Kega James Madenge Kanini, lastly, Odinga Winnie Imgad. Tuko sawa? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the first one on Kenya Kwanza is Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Kurgat. Then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Then David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, the first one is Ali Fatuma Gedi. The next one is Busire Timothy Museti. Then Dirie Abdullahi Mohammed. Lastly, Mugali Justus Kizito. You're good? Under Kenya Kwanza, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Under Azimio is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we are good. We're starting with Kenya Kwanza. Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Kurgat. And lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, the first one is Ali Fatuma Gedi. Then Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka. Then Odinga Winnie Imgad. Lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. We are good? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Under Azimio is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we are good. The first one is Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Kurgat. Lastly, Mwangi Godfrey Maina. Under Azimio la Umoja, we have Ali Fatuma Gedi, Bosire Timothy Moseti, then Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, and lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. Are you okay? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So under Kenya Kwanza, we start with Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Kurgat. And lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, we start with Ali Fatuma Gedi. Then Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka. Then Odinga Winnie Imgad. And lastly, Shabal Suleiman Said. You're good? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Under Azimio la Umoja is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance is Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Kurgat. And lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, the first one is Bosire Timothy Moseti. Then Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka. Then Odinga Winnie Imgad. Lastly, Shabal Suleiman side. You're good? Under Kenya Kwanza Alliance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we are good. So starting with Kenya Kwanza Alliance, the first one is Charles Frederick Muteti. Then Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Yesang Krugat. And lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja, Ali Fatuma Gedi, then Kega James Madenge Kanini, then Mugali Justus Kizito, then Shabal Suleiman Said. You okay?
Yeah.
Lastly,
Yes.
under the Kenya Kwanza Alliance, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Under Azimio, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Starting with Kenya Kwanza, the first one is Hassan Omar Hassan. Then Iman Falhada Deko. Then Kering Zipora Jesang Krugat. Then Mwangi Godfrey Maina. And lastly, David Ole Sankok. Under Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition, we have Ali Fatuma Gedi, Bosire Timothy Moseti, Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, and lastly, Kega James Madenge Kanini.
Honorable Senators, the results have been counted and tallied. A total of 58 ballots was cast. Number of spoiled ballots, 2. Number of valid ballots, 56. And the following are the results of the vote cast per candidate. On the Kenya Kwanza Alliance, Aden Abdikadir Omar, 13 votes. Busaidi Saleh Muhammad, 0 votes. Charles Frederick Muteti, 39 votes. Hassan Omar, 46 votes. Iman Falhada Deko, 43 votes. Iringo Cyprian Kubai, 12 votes. Kering Zipora Jesang Kurgat, 37 votes. Kuko Jonas Mr. Vincent, 0 votes. Luwoia Rebecca, 3 votes. Mwangi Geoffrey Maina, 29 votes. Nyambane Joel Okengo, 2 votes. Sankok David Ole, 35 votes. Sheikh Yasir Ali, 2 votes. Tomitom Lilian Chepto, 2 votes. To Ann Cherono, 1 vote. For the Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya Coalition Party, Ali Fatuma Gedi, 31 votes. Bosire Timothy Moseti, 17 votes. Dirie Abdullah Muhammad, 4 votes. Kalonzo Kennedy Musyoka, 45 votes. Kega James Mathenge Kanini, 29 votes. Kioni Jeremiah Ngayu, 1 vote. Mugali Justus Kizito, 9 votes. Mutua Winfred Sionindi, 0 votes. Nakusa Beatrice Askul, 1 vote. Ndeti Helen Mueni, 0 votes. Odinga Ingad Winnie, 35 votes. Sherbal Sleiman Said, 38 votes. We shall, as a House, I will relay these results to the National Assembly in form of a message, just like we'll await a message from the National Assembly so that we can conclude this exercise upon receipt of the message from the National Assembly. Next order, Clerk. The presiding officer kindly secure the ballots.
Order number 9, the county government's additional allocations, number 2 bill, Senate Bills number 4 of 2022, second reading.
Honorable Senators, after consultation, this order shall be deferred to today in the afternoon, and therefore we shall adjourn at this juncture and handle this matter in the afternoon. The House stands adjourned until 2:30.
Critical role in the furtherance of the East African objectives. Honorable Speaker, the Fourth Assembly of the East African Legislative Assembly, which commenced on the 18th December 2017, will come to an end on the 17th December 2022. Consequently, member states are expected to elect members of the Assembly within 90 days before the end of the term of the ongoing Assembly. Honorable Speaker, it is in this regard that the National Assembly and the Senate respectively resolved to establish a joint parliamentary select committee on election of members to the East African Legislative Assembly. Honorable Speaker, the Joint Select Committee was established on the 13th and the 18th October 2022 by the National Assembly and the Senate respectively to undertake the functions. And Honorable Speaker, the committee comprises of the following members of the National Assembly: